okay, now that I've done this, this is easy street, right? I'm going to be able to move forward, recreate myself, do all the things I want to do. And wow, it hit me hard. That was not reality. I realized once the house was quiet, the kids were with their dad, I was alone. It was like I couldn't stand my own thoughts. And all of a sudden, it was, what do I do now? What do I do now? I don't know who to call. I don't know what to do. I'm financially really scared about how to pay my bills. All these things started coming in.
Welcome to Radiant Mom Rising. Get ready to be inspired, empowered, and uplifted. I'm your host, Mary Dibble, and in each episode, we dive into amazing stories, insights, and conversations that help moms like you chase your dreams and embrace your worth. Let's rise and shine together. Welcome back to Radiant Mom Rising. Today's episode is one that I know will resonate deeply with so many of you. We're diving into a journey of strength, courage, and self-empowerment with our amazing guest, Crissy Freeman. Crissy is a mom who, against all odds, chose to leave behind a life that no longer served her in order to step fully into her own worth and happiness. Now, as a certified life coach, retreat facilitator, and podcast host, Crissy empowers women to say yes to themselves after divorce. If you've ever felt stuck, question your choices, or struggle to put yourself first, this conversation will light a fire within you. Crissy's story is raw, real, and truly inspiring. And it serves as a reminder that no matter where you are right now, you have the power to change your life. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Radiant Mom Rising. Thank you, Crissy, so much for joining us on the show today. I hope you're doing well.
I am. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
It's amazing. I've talked with you a little bit and I've read about your background story, so I'm very eager to get into that. So, why don't we start off by you introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Okay. So I born and raised in the state of Maine. I love to talk about Maine whenever I can because it's little itty bitty. Well, it's a big state, but not a lot of people. So I love to talk about that. But yes, so I am the lucky mom of two amazing young adult children. I have a 22-year-old son and a 19-year-old daughter. And I am just entering empty nest, which has its own, positives and negatives for sure, but it's all good. Yeah, so my journey is one of really rediscovery. I love to talk to women about this about my journey, because I'm hopeful that it will inspire others to have hope and hopefully make some changes in their own life. But I was married for 19 years to my college sweetheart, who I met and really fell in love with. And we, yeah, had our ups and downs, but ultimately the biggest struggle was substance abuse. And that is really my story is I stayed sort of stuck in this place of should I stay or should I go? Especially once my children were born. I didn't think I had a choice. And I thought that I really needed to fix him. And if I left, there was more concern around what might happen to my children. And not on purpose. He is, I do believe, a good man, but he has an illness. He has a disease, and that is sort of took that journey was a long one, and it didn't need to be that long. But again, I learned a lot along the way, and a lot of those were gifts that I have carried with me, and which has led me now to the work that I do with women. Because when I went through this and finally made the decision to leave, it was a very eye-opening, lonely journey, and it didn't need to be. But there's still a lot of stigma around it. And I also want to change that whole narrative, which is the stigma around being a divorcee
Yeah.
and what that means.
I think that's awesome and very brave of you. And I love that we're doing this and sharing more of these kind of stories because we see this all the time. So many people who will stay in a marriage because of the pressure, maybe because of the religion or beliefs about around divorce. And no one, in my opinion, should ever be forced to stay in a situation in which they're not safe. They're truly unhappy, and it's not a positive, loving environment for not just you, but the children, especially. I feel it's worse on the children to grow up seeing living with parents who aren't truly in love and aligned than it is them just going ahead and understanding that, hey, mommy's putting herself first, daddy's putting himself first, like they're doing what's best for them. That is the type of role modeling I feel like is so important than the societal pressure of like being this mom and dad couple, if depending on the situations, of course. And now, was this something that you guys, when you first met, were you both like, into the substance abuse together? Was it something that you just dealt with that he had the problem with and you were just still with him regardless of that?
Yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
question. And so we met in college, and of course, it was a different time,
Yeah.
meaning, I was in a sorority, he was in a fraternity. There was lots of drinking and
Yeah.
partying around that. I have some great memories, but I also made some choices that, I'm
Mhm.
not overly proud of. A lot of that was drinking in excess. But I guess I had this belief in my mind that this is going to stop. Like, this is just for a period of time. We're in college, the
Yeah.
different life. This is going to end. And we're going to then get jobs. We're going to, build a life
Yeah.
together. We're going to have kids, and we're not going to do this anymore. And so when I left college, I left that behind, meaning I still had my friends. I
Yeah.
still, associated with them and everything. But for me, it wasn't about the partying anymore. It was about building a life that felt really good, where we could support one another and also have a family. And it stopped for me, but it didn't stop for him. And so I started to see that there were definitely signs there even before we got married, which is something that I think is also important to point out is that, our intuition sometimes is so strong and we can actually feel it within our body. And I knew that I should not move forward with that marriage. My body, I was ill. I wasn't sleeping. There were so many things, and I still moved forward with it because I thought, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do, right?
Mhm.
This is the next step
Yeah.
for me. I have a job. Now I need to get married and start a family. So you do have a choice. I just want to say that to
Yeah.
people. And, our bodies are telling us really what direction to head. And it's stopping and listening to that, which I didn't do. But yes, so to answer your question, yes, I definitely was participating in that for a period of
Yeah.
our lives when we first
Oh,
met. And then, yeah, and then it stopped for me and it continued.
for him, and exactly, and then that happens. That's like because I've been in that situation. I did drugs when I was a teenager. I did hard drugs actually when I was younger. So it was when you get to that point where you finally want to turn your life around, but they don't grow, they don't change. That is a hard situation to be in for sure. And it changes people. Like I was a horrible person back then. I mean, not because of who I am, but because of what I was doing. And that world is very challenging to understand if you've never been in it. It's very challenging to be an outsider looking in and understand what that person, that individual is struggling with inside to keep them going on that direction. And I love that in the end, though, you did what was best for you. Although tell us a little bit more about that as far as some of the things, because I bet you can speak to a lot of people with this of like what kept you staying, even though you could have left sooner. And as a way of helping people to see, well, what could they maybe look at themselves right now if they were in that situation?
Absolutely. Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head earlier, which is the children. I really felt that I was keeping this secret from them. I really felt like, okay, I mean, I was playing, defense all the time. Like, okay, they're not going to see this. I'm going to make sure they don't see it. So, he would go out a lot and come home really late, and someone would be carrying him into the house. Or, I'd wake up in the middle of the night, he's not home, and I'd find him like on the front stairs. And I'd make sure I got him in and got him to bed and all these things. And I was really afraid that if I left, oh my goodness, my kids would still want to see their dad. And how would I be able to keep them safe if I wasn't there? And little did I know that these kids, they know what's going on. I mean, my children were young when this started happening, and my son developed so much anxiety. And what I realized now was because he was aware of some of the things. He knew he was sort of on shaky ground when it came to things that were going on in the house. And I wasn't modeling the behaviors that I would want to model for my children, which is we have a choice in life. And I would never want them to think that if they were in a situation that was unsafe, that was not feeling good to them, that was making them live this life that is small, that they didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
And that's what I was doing by staying, was saying, it doesn't matter how bad this gets. I am not I don't value myself enough to leave. And I'm not putting myself first. And so the fear, so for any woman that is out there, and is really fearful of that, there are other things that you can do. There is support that you can get so that, you're not walking away with this, oh my goodness, now what if he gets in a car accident or all these other things happen? There's ways to really surround yourself with people and resources who can help you and who can help your spouse. And so I waited until my oldest actually had his driver's license. And I thought, okay, now I can go because now 19 years later, right? Now I can go because my son can drive. And I love to tell this story of just my son, how what he played in the role of me leaving is I will never forget it to this day. I had been really struggling in this place of should I stay or should I go? And doing some different, inner work. And I remember we were sitting in the driveway and we were pulling out, and my son looks at me and he puts his hand on my knee and he says, Mom, we're going to be okay. And I just broke down in tears because he knew what I was struggling with. He felt it.
Yeah.
And that was his way of saying, stop fighting, Mom.
Mm.
It's okay. And we shouldn't have to wait for our children to tell us that, right? But what a beautiful gift it was, at the time. But yes, that is why I stayed. And, looking back, these are the lessons that I would love to share with others around. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, and that's oh, that's so powerful and so beautiful, like how our children just they're such good souls and they can comfort us in ways that we feel like, oh, you shouldn't have to do that, but it's also a beautiful blessing at the same time that they have that kind heart and can be there even for us sometimes when we even need it because we're human and we are always going to make our mistakes. We're, no, there's no right, wrong way per se. Parenting is is unpredictable and there's always lessons to be learned and we're always doing our best. And the goal is to, you know, really start with yourself. That's what I've always believed. It always starts with you. If you are the role model, you are the one that has to show up for them and they're going to feed off your energy. They're going to feed off of the how you talk, how you act, how you are. And so I love this messaging. I love sharing this and it's like you can look back now and see that it didn't have to be that way. And tell us a little bit about that experience too when you did finally make that move. Like what was that like for you?
Yeah. So, it's so interesting. You sort of build up in your mind like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm finally strong enough to do
Yeah.
this. And okay, now that I've done this is easy street, right? I'm going to be able to move forward, recreate myself, do all the things I want to do. And wow, it hit me hard. That was not reality. I realized once the house was quiet, the kids were with their dad, I, was alone. It was like I couldn't stand my own thoughts. And all of a sudden, it was, what do I do now? What do I do now? I don't know who to call. I don't know what to do. I'm financially really scared about how to pay my bills. All these things started coming in. And while I had thought about them before, it wasn't until it really happened and I was sitting in it and experiencing it. And all I can say is, I wish that I had allowed myself to sit in it. I wish that I had allowed myself to feel the discomfort, because what I've learned through this journey is that when we can sit in the discomfort and actually feel it, we can allow it to move through us. And what I did instead is I didn't like the feeling. I was like, "Oh, I don't like this. This is uncomfortable. I don't know what to do." So I moved, boom, right into another relationship. It ended up being an extremely unhealthy relationship with someone who, I don't like to label people narcissists, but had those tendencies.
Yeah.
I started to believe things about myself that were really, really nasty and negative. And yeah, if I had allowed myself the time to really get to know me again, to learn how to enjoy being alone with myself. I was so afraid of that, being alone. And am I gonna, I had this fear of, I had this vision of like sitting in a rocking chair, as an elderly woman, crocheting and like being alone. And I'm like, why is that such a bad thing? It's like, if we can learn to really enjoy our own company, what a gift. And so, yeah, so it wasn't as easy as I had in my mind. So to, all the women out there who are, either in the process of divorce, thinking about divorce, give yourself time. Give yourself time to really get to know you, to grieve. There, whether it's your decision or someone else's decision, it's a grieving process, because when you go, we put on all these costumes throughout our life, and one of them is being a wife. And when that is no longer, there's sort of a grieving process to that of, wow, who am I now that I'm not this person's wife anymore? And so there's a whole journey around that. And so really learning to explore that, to get in touch with, what are my values? What do I like? What do I not like? Take yourself on a date. That was one thing I did, is I took myself on a date by myself in the woods. I went hiking and then I had lunch by myself. It was scary, but it was so much fun because I let myself do what I wanted. So yeah, if I can, if I could flip it and go back, I would say I would have really just sat through the discomfort and learn the lessons.
Yes. Oh, I love that. That's beautiful advice, because we don't do that enough. Like we're so busy as moms, it just, and like you say, wives, employees, whatever we are, entrepreneurs, we're so busy thinking and focusing on everyone else and all the things that we got to do, that we neglect taking that time for ourselves to just pause and sit
Yeah.
with ourselves and get to know ourselves. And I feel like that is the most crucial part of really growing as a person and really understanding yourself, and even finding your way in the directions you should go, is by taking that time for yourself and really learning to love it, learning to embrace it. And, as somebody who wants to, when you want to attract the right man for your life, for instance, the biggest lesson I always learned was, you attract who you are. Like, if I don't want to keep attracting all these jerks in my life, I got to also show up in a way that I love myself. Like, how can I expect someone to love me when I didn't even love myself? I didn't even know my worth. And I had this insecurity that I brought into these relationships. So I was easily manipulated. I was easily treated with disrespect. But at the same time, I was kind of doing that to myself anyways. And the fact that I was tolerating it made it that much easier to find those people. And so when you take that time for yourself to work on you and really figure out, who am I, or who do I want to be, and then be her, then you really will attract the right person. It happened for me, and it can happen for so many other people out there if that's what you want. So not everyone, like you say, there's nothing wrong with being single. Like there's a lot, like my mom is one of those people, like she's good on her own. She values her time to herself. Now, if she were blessed to have met a good man in her lifetime, of course she'd be grateful for that. But at the same time, she's not sitting here dwelling or being upset because she's not there. You know, she's learning to embrace her journey and appreciate that time for herself. And I just, I think that's awesome just to have that perspective, especially because I see that a lot actually, where a lot of people, once they get divorced or they go through a breakup, they immediately want to jump into another relationship because they can't handle that time alone. I actually saw that with my first son's, his biological dad. He had a drug problem and he did not want to even acknowledge his existence. Like he was mad that I even had him and to this day would never acknowledge his existence. But one of the things about him is he could never be alone, never be alone. Like he had to always jump from this relationship to that relationship to this relationship. And for me, I went years being single after him because I really wanted to heal. And that was one of the best things I ever did for myself, even though it was lonely sometimes. But at the same time, I had my son, I had my life. I still embraced what I could until, you know, I was able to attract my soulmate later on. It takes time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. And and I've been lucky enough to find an amazing partner that I have
Yeah,
now in my life.
that's awesome.
And so I love what you said because I couldn't agree more. It took some really bad relationships and decisions for me to see that time out, time out. What are you doing? This exactly what you said. You attract what you put out there. And, I had to really go, I did a lot of journaling.
I
I
love
did
that.
a lot of meditating. I did a lot of, solo, just going out in
Yeah.
nature by myself and really trying to just clear
Yeah.
my mind of all
Yeah.
these thoughts and just really start to relearn,
Mhm.
what is it that I want? What is it that I love? Who am I at my core? And then once I started doing that, it was actually really easy to start putting myself out there again because I knew, you know what? I want someone who aligns with this, not someone who completes me. No, I want someone who can be a good partner, who, enjoys some of the things I enjoy and can meet me where I am and doesn't expect
Yeah.
me to be something else because that's what I was doing was I was allowing others to sort of define how I show up.
Mm.
And that was never going to find the right person, right? I was so focused on fixing and pleasing because I'd done that in my marriage for so long that I kept finding these fixers that I needed to fix. And I
It's
went
okay.
about it all the wrong way. So I couldn't agree with you more that, it really is about doing that inner work, spending some time getting to know you, and then you can really get clear about what you want in a relationship if you want to have that romantic relationship.
Hey there, Mama. We're going to take a quick break because I have something truly special I'd love to share. If you're a mom with big dreams of starting your own business or you're already running one while juggling the demands of family life, I see you. I really do. I know what it's like to have endless to-do lists, to feel the weight of the world on your shoulders, or even trying to find any kind of time for yourself while everyone else is needing something from you. Some days it feels like you're being pulled in 100 different directions and you wonder if it's even possible to do it all. Well, here's the truth. You don't have to do it all, and you definitely don't have to do it alone. My Mom Biz Mastery course and community is designed to help you take back your time, ignite your business goals, and to do it all without burning out. It's filled with practical, real world strategies tailored to fit your busy life. You'll get step by step guidance. And here's the exciting part, I'm now offering 6 private one on one coaching sessions alongside the course for even further support to ensure you thrive every step of the way. And if you're craving more personalized guidance, I also do offer one on one coaching with limited spots. But together, we'll create a plan that feels right for you, helping you get unstuck and step confidently into the life and business you've always dreamed of. So, Mama, if you're ready to put your dreams first, let's chat. Click the link in the show notes to schedule a free consultation. It's the first step towards making it all happen. You deserve to thrive, and I'm here to help you every step of the way. Now, Back to the show. Yes. And I'm telling you, the doors of opportunity will happen too. Like when the
Yes.
timing is right, like that's in all areas of life. When you make that choice to go down a path where you're putting yourself first, where you're getting to know yourself, where you're loving yourself, you're embracing the journey, you're opening yourself up to receive the blessings that's meant for you, it will show up. It will show up in all sorts of ways. You got to look for them sometimes. Sometimes it's obvious, and other times it might be not so obvious, but they're there. And I think that's so fun. And to know that we have that power within us and that we have that ability to allow our lives to unfold differently than it has been, because Lord knows I've made my mistakes. I've, attracted a lot of hardships, but it's so nice to finally be in a place where it's like, oh, I don't have to keep going down this path. I don't have to keep going this direction. I can go this way now. And I have. And there's evidence of how people all over the world have done that and changed their lives. So I commend you on that. And your children, tell us a little bit about their experience. How have they gotten through this changes that you've made on this journey?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm also a child of divorce. So one of the additional reasons I didn't leave, and it took me so long, was because my parents' divorce was very toxic. It was very much about they did not like one another. They made that very clear. It was a bad ending to a marriage. And I swore that I would never put my children through that. And what I didn't realize, and what I've been able to do with my former spouse, is you can have a healthy co parenting relationship without being their best friend. And that is, you can put the kids first and say, you know what? I'm not going to speak poorly about my former spouse to my kids. I am not going to, ask them to do things for me or to find out information about, what their dad is doing. No, I'm not going to put them in the middle. And so we did a really nice job, their dad and I, in really creating a co-parenting relationship where we communicate when we need to about the kids, and where we also are very transparent with the kids about, what's going on all the time, whether it had to do with their schedule and changes, whether it had to do with, the things we were paying for, whatever it was. We were very transparent in that they were part of the process, so that, kids like predictability. They like schedules. They like to know that they can count on something. And so for my kids, talking to them about it now, I do wish I could go back in time, because they are much happier now and thriving now than when we were married. Because when we were married, there was a lot of anxiety in the house around, when is dad going to come home drunk? When is mom going to be running around and trying to, make sure everybody's okay and anxious? They don't have that anymore. Now it is, they come to my house or they go to their dad's house, and there's none of that. There is a happy home where they can express themselves. And my oldest is now 22, so he just graduated from college. And we have an amazing sort of adult relationship now. And he shares a lot with me, about some of the things from growing up, but he's very well balanced, good at communicating. And my daughter is just starting out in college. And, same thing. She feels like she brings both her dad and I in on issues she's having. We communicate with one another regularly. So they are thriving, both of them. I'd be lying if I said we didn't have our challenges early on with, the changes themselves. I think one of the things I will say to parents out there is involve them in the process. So when you were talking about, for example, schedule, involve them in it. Okay, this is what dad and I are talking about. This is what it's going to, especially if they're at an age when you can. Mine were teenagers when I got divorced. So my daughter was 12, but my son was 14. And so involve them in it, though, if you can, so that they can be a part of that. And then communicate. That's all I can say. Figure out a mode of communication that works. It doesn't have to be the phone, meaning talking to the person. It doesn't have to be texting. It can be email. There's so many different ways that you can communicate because there are some people out there that really struggle with having that verbal conversation and don't want to be interrupted on a regular basis with texting. So they do email and it works for them.
Yeah.
So I just say find what works for you, but make sure it's a really good form of communication so that you are in lockstep with one another because that is a gift that you can give to your children.
I love that. And, with your journey, at what point on this journey did you turn around and decide that you wanted to help others in the same situations? Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so
Mm.
of course COVID changed so many lives, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And mine was one of them. I had we filed for divorce right before COVID hit, so some things
Wow.
were delayed in the courts. And then, I got into a difficult relationship. And then very shortly after that, that's when I started to do the inner work, which was I found habits that worked for me that really allowed me to get out of my head and operate from my heart. And I started to surround myself with a beautiful support system, which, if you don't have it, you find a support system. It can be a hiking group, it can be a coach, it can be a therapist, there's so many different things that you can, if you don't have a core group, there are divorce support groups, all of these things. So I found my sort of village, I call them,
Oh.
and then I became a part of a community where it was called Clubhouse, and it was a platform where you could go and listen to different people talk. And they were talking about really rediscovering yourself. And I met a coach and I started working with her. And I loved what she was doing. And I said, oh my gosh, I've created all of this great process for myself on how to really rediscover me, how to create a fulfilling life, and how to get out of being stuck after divorce in this sort of identity crisis of, looking at the past and thinking about the future and really start to move forward. And so I created From Mrs. to Me, which is really all about that. It's about really that transition from, being that wife to really being in alignment with your authentic truth. And we say it all the time, but it's very difficult to, if you're not used to it, to just show up unapologetically as you. And so that's what this is about, is really let that shine. Like this is, we spend so much time worried about what other people think and how we're going to show up and how we look. And it's not anyone else's life but yours. And if you can't express that fully, then you're never going to be able to step into that authentic self. So that's what From Mrs. to Me is all about. I actually have a program and it's all about renewal and rediscovery. And I work with coaching clients through that program. A lot of the work that we do is around sort of career coaching and things like that. My background is in career coaching. So we do a lot of that around, hey, do you want to make a shift? Is what you're doing now in alignment? We talk about, getting back on track from a financial perspective. And then we do a lot of deep diving into addressing our fears, addressing the things that hold us back, and how to really get clear about what it is that we want to do moving forward. And then I have a podcast by the same name, which is called From Mrs. to Me, and that was a dream of mine. It's really my passion project to really have women who have been through divorce share their stories of resilience and transformation. We all have a different story, and my hope is that other women out there listening will connect to someone's story and say, "Oh, that's me,
Yeah.
and I know I can do this." And so that's why I have the podcast. So that's the work I'm doing now, and I absolutely love it. If I can change one life with the work that I'm doing and really empower women to make those changes, then that's what matters.
Oh yeah, that's exactly why I'm here, and I love that you're doing that because that's a hard shift. I mean, anytime we make big decisions in our lives, it's not easy. And for so long, for so many, like they go through it alone and you don't have to. You shouldn't have to. And there are great people, like even if your own family or close friends don't support you, trust me, there are amazing people out there who will. And it is so important. And same thing with me, it was finding that life coach initially that really changed my life because I never realized how much of my subconscious mind was like running the show. I never realized how much I was creating my own reality just by what I believed. Like that's so powerful in itself. And that's what I help people to shift is their mindset because it's truly a powerful transformation that we can all go through and really change, like you say, the outcome and finding that clarity of like, what do I actually really want? Because so many times the things we think we want is actually been put in us because of our how we were raised or how society tells us what we should or shouldn't want. So it's so important to take that journey of self-discovery and figuring out who am I outside of all these roles that I play on a regular basis. Like and where do I really want to go? And I think that's beautiful that you're helping women out there to go from that and to really connect with themselves. And you, like you say, we're so scared. I know I was guilty of that. And I always will always work through that. Before somebody who was so insecure, like showing up and putting myself out there and doing this podcast and all the things that I did, I never in a million years thought I would be confident to do that. But here I am. I'm doing it and I love it. And it's great.
Right.
And it's like, the more you show up and be you and stop worried about what anyone else thinks. This is, like you say, this is your life. No one else's. They're not paying your bills. They're not, living life for you. They're doing their thing. All you need to focus on is you. And that alone will make such an impact of those around you too. The influence that happens when you start putting yourself first is incredible in the relationships that happen around you. And even when you lose those people, for some people, that's a good thing. They're probably not somebody who should be in that in your energy and in your circle anyways. So I always look at it like that. But yeah, and tell us where can people find you if they are interested in learning more about your program and of course your podcast. We'll make sure to share that in the show notes and everything else. But tell us a little bit about the best places to find you, connect with you.
Yes, absolutely. You can reach me on my website, which is from mrs2me.com, where you will find ways to connect with me. Then I'm also on Instagram at from Mrs. to Me. And you can also find me on Facebook. I actually have a Facebook community. It's called From Mrs. to Me, Rediscovering You After Divorce.
Love
So
that.
reach out, please. I'd love to talk to people, even if you just want to make the connection.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's so nice. It really is to be able to just connect and meet new people. Like I said, I love this journey because I get to meet people like you. So it's awesome. And I can't thank you enough for being part of the show. And is there any final piece of advice or inspiration that you would like to share today with moms out there who may be in a similar situation that you were in?
Yeah, I always like to say when I end my podcast, I always say you can't pour from an empty cup because I really love that saying because it's so true. We deplete ourselves all the time by giving, whether it's as a mom, whether it's as a wife, whether it's as an employee. We're always giving. And it's not a bad thing to receive. In fact, we need to start being more open to receiving. And when we fill up that cup of ours, it literally spreads to every other aspect of our life, including the relationships we have.
Yeah, perfectly said and absolutely true. So again, Chrissy, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. I am so happy that you are on this journey and that you're able to help everyone else the way you have from what you've been through. I think that's beautiful and a great way to live life.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for doing what you do as well.
Crissy is so inspiring. Here are the key takeaways from today's episode. Listen to your intuition. If you're feeling uneasy or experiencing physical stress about a major decision, like staying in a difficult relationship, trust that your intuition is guiding you. Your body often senses things that your mind might be rationalizing away. Give yourself permission to honor those feelings. You have a choice. Staying in a situation that isn't fulfilling or isn't healthy isn't your only option. While leaving might feel overwhelming, remember that you always have the power to choose a different path that serves you better. Model self-respect for your children. Children learn from your actions. When you prioritize your well-being and show them that it's okay to make tough choices, you're teaching them self-worth and resilience. By staying true to yourself, you're setting an example of courage and strength. Surround yourself with support. Transitioning out of a relationship can be incredibly isolating, but there are support systems and people who can help. Don't feel like you have to face it alone. Seek friends, family, or professional resources to help you navigate your journey. Take time to heal before moving on. After a significant change, allow yourself time to reconnect with who you are. Jumping into a new relationship or situation can distract from important healing. Give yourself the space to process, grieve, and rediscover your passions and values. Embrace solitude as growth. Being alone can feel intimidating, but it's also an opportunity to get to know yourself on a deeper level. Try spending time by yourself doing things you enjoy. This can help build self-confidence and make future relationships healthier. Redefine yourself on your terms. Life changes like divorce often come with grief for the identity you once had. Use this time to redefine what happiness, fulfillment, and success mean to you, independent of your previous roles. Allow discomfort as part of your journey. Growth often comes from facing uncomfortable emotions rather than avoiding them. Allow yourself to sit with your feelings and process them. This will help you move forward with a clearer sense of self and purpose. If you want to learn more about Crissy, be sure to check her out on her website, frommisstome.com. All links for her is in show notes as well. If you know anyone who would find value from tuning in, please be sure to share this with them. This is such a powerful message that we really are wanting to spread and help support moms in so many ways. We also would greatly appreciate if you all would leave us a review or a 5-star rating, and also comment and engage. Let us know, what did you take away from this episode yourself? I love to hear from you, and I truly appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in with us today. If you're ready to get a jump start on your journey as a life coach, I am here to support you in any way that I can. Visit me at marydoublecoaching.com to learn more, or contact me today on Facebook or Instagram. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Until next time, much love.